So this is going to be my Games Done Quick submission for Hotline Miami New Game Plus levels, and we're just going to start it off. Alright, so Hotline Miami is a top-down action game, first of all. And so what that means is, as of course you can see right now, we have a top-down perspective. So a lot of games, of course, have a side view in 2D, but so this means that the vast majority of the game is based off of accuracy, rather than usually it's sort of more about movement. So that's why this game is really popular to be played on keyboard and mouse. Besides that, also, this game is also considered to be pretty difficult, and it sort of is, so we'll still die a bit, but in general, so it's really more just about having movement be minimized as much as possible so you don't take time, and for you to keep your accuracy up. And this is the New Game Plus levels category, and in this category, what you do, it's sort of weird sort of category. It's not really a classical category. It's sort of like a single segment type thing, but it's the most popular category that we have on Hotline Miami. And basically what we have to do is, so there's a thing we can do which you can quit to the menu and it saves quite a bit of time. That's in the any percent category. However, we don't do that, and we also take out a lot of skips, so it's more like a single segment, no major glitches type thing. And the reason that people really like it is because since it's New Game Plus, we have access to all the masks in the game, and as you can see currently, we're playing with this little purple panther mask, and this mask is called Brandon, and he gives us 2/6 more speed. I keep sweating just by force of habit, doesn't matter. And so that means we're moving at roughly 133 point whatever speed over top of the normal mask, which we are currently right here. And because of that, it means we can move around faster, and we want to minimize movement, so of course it's the fastest mask, as we've figured out over time. Now, those first two levels are really nothing big. Now we get to the point where we're starting to actually use guns a bit more. And so like right here, there's a lot of times where the way you can take on a level really starts to diverge. This happens more as the run goes on a bit more. Because a lot of the little bit later levels have a lot of different ways you can go about doing them. And so there's a ton of strats to do a lot of these different levels. And because Hotline Miami is a rather RNG-ridden game, it's all about adapting to what happens, so having the ability to know a lot about different strategies will really help you in the long term, being able to actually deal with all of the things that can happen. And as I said before, since we're using Brandon, there is a popular mask. Sorry, I had a bad weapon right there. Since we're using Brandon masks, we don't have Lethal Fist, which is a scene with the other very popular mask called Tony. So a lot of the strategies differ between the different masks we use. There's only really two major masks that are used in this category, Tony and Brandon, for very obvious reasons. You can use any mask, but there's really no reason not to use either of these two. And the vast majority of newer runners and all the best runs currently are all using Brandon as of now. People used to run Tony because people weren't good enough for Brandon quite yet, and so, but nowadays we've gotten to the point where pretty much every single level is faster with Brandon. And he roughly saves estimate between like I think 30 to 40 seconds over top of Tony across the entire run. The run is not too long. The current world record's at 22:55, but the average run is between like a 24 and a 28 for most better runners. And as you see, we keep going through this apartment area. It's actually pretty easy. You can actually save quite a bit of time just by having good movement. And also, as you notice, I've been putting my right arm first, the right arm of the character, to go through the load zone first. And the reason I do that is because it's actually a little bit larger. The hitbox is not exactly perfect. So if you put your right arm first, you actually are going through it 1 frame faster. than you would if you walked forward. If you go backwards, you actually lose a frame over walking forward or using your left arm. Now sometimes we get kind of messed. As I said, this game has quite a bit of RNG, and due to that, there's enemies will sometimes, certain enemies have different weapons, so they're completely based off of RNG. And so I just had to use a pipe, which is not really the optimal. If I had the choice, I would be using the golf club pretty much all the time. But so the thing is, of the three main melee weapons, the bat, the pipe, and the golf club, the bat is the worst one because it's very slow swinging speed. Makes it so that you have to wait quite a bit of time if you're going to be attacking multiple people at once. And since we're playing Brandon, we want to do a lot of melee strats over using guns because it's just going to result in us getting through it much faster, because every second that we're not holding a melee weapon means we have to keep track of where melee weapons are if we mess up, because a gun can only do so far once you get into a sticky situation. This level is a bit difficult if you don't hit the cycle correctly, which I just did not. Also, this weapon right here, the crowbar, is only on this level, but it's also the best weapon for melee. It's also used in a different category, which I'm also submitting, which is called all masks, and in that category you use it to get a secret mask. Now that guy right there is really dangerous, especially if you have Tony. As you saw, he's very, very fast with his shots, so you gotta be really careful. Usually that guy actually comes over, but didn't this time for some reason. Doesn't really matter. And as you see right here with these text boxes, there are ways to reduce them quite a bit, such that you don't have as much of them popping up, which actually, of course, so like when you're playing through the level, you don't notice anything. Like, you can play through the level and beat the level itself faster, but on certain levels, if you have too many text boxes, it can actually add up to multiple seconds of time loss, which isn't really seen as much on most levels, but on certain levels that we'll see a bit later, it can actually add up to be quite a bit. Now, right there, I wanted to do something called a hostage strat, where we pick up that guy right there and we'd use him as a hostage, but that didn't really go out too well. But I managed to salvage it. Now, right here, usually this guy would react in a little bit faster of a manner, but it doesn't really matter. Clean It in general is a very technical level because of that, and so it looks very simple after you start to get it down, but it's actually really difficult to get down. And especially that second floor, the assault rifle strategy is very difficult for newer runners. There's a lot of difference between new runners and more experienced runners in terms of the strategies they use and the ways they go about a lot of different things. The main thing about this type of speedrun is learning how to adapt to the AI, but also just being able to not just have better reaction times, but also like knowing exactly what to do rather than just, oh, I just need to react fastly to kill them. Like, and also prioritization and making sure you keep a read on where every single weapon is at all time will make you much better at the game. And there's also, since there's so many different levels, so many different strategies for all these different levels, it can be really, really beneficial just for even understanding of the game to know pretty much all of them. So it's never a bad idea to learn a strategy, even if you're not going to use it. And also, as you can see right here, I did not need to throw that at all, actually, but since it's a force of habit to keep my like right here, it's sort of a habit when you play this character, Brandon, or any character besides Tony, to wanting to keep your melee weapons at hand, so it's sort of like a force of habit for me to just throw into an area where I'm able to get it easily. Now we're coming up on the first actual boss, because we played against one earlier, but he is kind of a joke. This is the biker fight, and it's sort of RNG. It is and isn't at the same time. There's a chance that the knife that he's going to throw, he's going to throw 2 knives, and we just had to hit him twice. But the knife, if you get really unlucky, can go too far in, and then there's a there's like a failsafe they have, which basically just instant kills us. It's called the clank, because he throws it and it makes like a clanking sound. But really, we just want to minimize his walking to his little cleaver, and then we just bash his head. And also, I just duplicated this weapon, so that's a thing. And also, later on, we'll be coming back to the same area as a different character. Weird story. Also, I'm playing the Ori and the Blind Forest soundtrack in the background, just because I like it. And I've listened to the Hotline soundtrack forever. Of course, in an actual marathon, you'd actually listen to the real music, but yeah. So that's done with part 2, and now we're finally on to part 3 and 4, the really big issues. Yeah, so on Push It right here, this is actually a level that doesn't look as difficult as it is. Like right there, like right up here, if we attack from left to right, it's actually much easier to die because of the way that the enemies drop their weapons. And also, that right there is really difficult to hit. And again, as I said, I really don't want the baseball bat, but sometimes you're gonna kind of just get screwed into using what you are using, and yeah, that was just a bad idea. Oof. Dying is very fast, though, so a lot of times you don't lose too much time to dying. Though, of course, the main priority is to die as little as possible. That's one of the first things you gotta learn how to do when you're starting to speedrun the game, to really shave off a lot of different time. Oh, and yeah, right now that guy was just doing a every frame he was turning 180 degrees. You can actually, if you're seeing that and you use Cheat Engine, you can slow down the game and actually see it happen every frame. He's turning back and forth. It's really interesting. There's a lot of things in this game like that. Oh, and also, in terms of RNG, I forgot to mention, so with the RNG in this game, there's a few major points of RNG, and those are, so there are AI that have random roaming, so there's specific AI that do that, and then there's AI who, then there's the AI, their weapons sometimes are random, specific AI, the bullet spread is of course random, and then also their reaction times can be random. Their reaction times can vary between 1 frame and never reacting ever, depending on different conditions, or actually pure RNG. But most of the time, it's really not up to you, and it's like things that happen like on the frame level, such that you actually can't really do much about it. Some things you can manipulate, other things you really just cannot, and it just comes down to you just basically things that you cannot really take control of yourself. So it's basically RNG, or it is pure RNG. I'm surprised. Yeah, there we go. And we'll just wait for him to get up and throw this. It doesn't matter. Yep. Crackdown is also another really difficult level. Also, yeah, the story in this game is kind of weird. Don't think I really want to talk about much about it, but yeah, it can get really... yeah. So, this is Hot and Heavy. Hot and Heavy is one of the most difficult levels for newer runners, as well as casual players. However, it sort of becomes easier as you go on, because there's a lot of cycles you can hit, so if you just get better at the game, you'll end up playing a lot better at this level than normally. Also, this is really dangerous. There we go. Okay, cool. I went in a little bit too early with this issue there. Like, a lot of these things, like these first 2 screens are very easy to get through once you start to get better at the game. You can still, of course, mess it up quite easily, but yeah. Like, that one guy in that second room right there, the one guy was a static AI, the other one was a roamer, the random roaming, as I said. So that can be an issue, as like, sometimes he'll be right next to the door and it'll make it a lot faster, and other times he'll be like that and we have to wait for him. Now here, this is just a very difficult to execute level in general. This screen, I mean. Ooh, wait, what? How is he still alive? Okay, that was weird. There we go. Alright, where's the last? The dog? No, it's the guy up here. What? Oh my god, this is... Oof. This is what Rust does to you. Yikes. There we go. There we go, okay. That was really, really bad. That's just a product of me being rusty right now. Oof. Now, see, this, if this guy has the double barrel, then you have to be a little bit more careful than usual. Just because he'll react a little bit faster. Now, I've just gotta get over here. Oh, there, okay. This isn't a... The third and fourth screens are really what make this entire level difficult. So we just kind of gotta... There's another strategy which I should practice that's a little bit more consistent, but I'm just so used to this one. I might learn it. But yeah. Alright, just double checking there. And he just tanked some shotgun bullets, which was exceedingly rare, but things happen. So that wasn't too terrible. I mean, of course I can get much better time than this, but this is just a submission video. Also, the cars after each level are consistent. It's always up, it's left, down, down, right. So, on the first level of the game, you go left afterwards. On the second level, you go down. Third level, down, right, yeah. And that's the same for the first 3 parts of the game. So the first 12 levels, you have an exact pattern of where to go. It's once you get to the 4th part that things get different because story reasons. But then that's pretty also consistent, so it's really easy to remember in general. This is one of the hardest screens in the entire game because it's very difficult to keep track of where everyone is, and you have to be insanely aware of how different AI react and also how to keep yourself alive. It's just a overall difficult level. But I have a golf club for its next screen. This is one of the most consistent screens in the game as you get better at the game. And of course I mess it up when I say that. Happens. And he just 1 frame reaction time me. Nice. That was because I had already let him see me. But that's how it normally goes. Yeah, there we go. We don't need a melee weapon to next floor because you can usually get lucky and just do that. Yeah. Now we come down here, we're just gonna shoot that. Yeah. Very simple boss right here. It's pretty difficult to die. This entire level is my favorite level in the entire game, though. It's also now the fastest level we can possibly do due to a new skip that was found. Which is sort of is the reason why NG 80% is no longer as enjoyable for me. Though, in general, most people like to play New Game Plus levels the most. It just is overall the best category to play in terms of its enjoyability and also the competitive nature of it. It just aids itself to being the most popular category, as 90% generally does in other games. Yeah, so now this is a story thing, blah blah blah, our head explodes, etc. Basically, we're just going to a hospital, but now we gotta break out of that hospital. And so this is trauma, it's the like, default stealth section of the game that doesn't really need it. So it's not exactly a good level or fun level, but it's actually insanely... There is no RNG in this level at all, except like the swaying of your head, I guess, might be a little bit, but really it's just completely consistent if you just move correctly. So if you like actually get caught on here, it's pretty difficult after you just like get it down a couple times. So it's really just like a formality to get through this. And then we just have to wait for this cutscene right here, and then we're going into Assault and then Vengeance, which are probably the two hardest levels back to back. Assault is an insane amount of RNG, so you have to, no matter how much you'll play it, you'll always have issues with that level. And then Vengeance is just a very, very difficult level to execute in general with the fastest strats. And even without like the most top of the line strats, even like the like second level, third levels of strats are all just very difficult in general, because there's a lot of AI and a lot of different ways that they can react to you, and a lot of just branching paths of how you can go through it. But first of all, here we go with Assault, and we're just going to use like a clockwise approach to this level. And so, also minor thing, if I stand behind this table and someone starts running at me, they will not react to me until they stop moving, because as long as they're moving, they don't see me behind it. The second they'll stop, they'll instantly kill me. But if I'm behind that table, then we have no issues if someone's running right at me. Come on. There you go. Now you need to die. And you too. Oop, 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 there you go. That was scary. I'm going to go left here, just because I'm so used to it. And then we're good, yeah. Second screen is a lot less RNG dependent as these next two. Okay, we didn't get an assault shotgun, but I could have actually changed it if I wanted to, but I wasn't paying attention hard enough. Okay, so I missed this cycle. I'm just gonna wait for this guy to come back. We can punch him right through the wall, which skips us having to go all the way over there and then walk around. Saves quite a bit of time. So you just have to do that if you like. Even if you miss it multiple times, it's still not worth it to do anything else. Now we're just gonna bait these guys over here, and that made these two guys run. Which there we go. Yep, and that's Assault. Which is a very stressful level, in general. But it always feels good to finally be done with it. And as I said, different ways after since we're in part 4 right now, yeah, our apartment's different, so we're not doing the whole going to a car thing in the same way. It's a little bit different. So this is a very, very difficult strat to pull off once you start to learn the game. It's a lot more difficult than it looks, because it requires a lot of like knowledge of how very slight difference in movements will make enemies react, and then also just it's very, you just have to execute it very fast, so it's not really beginner friendly in the slightest. Alright, that was really good. That was a good Vengeance. Vengeance is a very difficult level. It's a lot less RNG dependent than Assault is, though. But there's a lot of different ways to save time on this level, and a lot of different strategies you can take. And all the best ones are very difficult to pull off. So we're coming up on the fake end of the game. It's not actually the end of the game, but it's called the Showdown, and they call it the final chapter just to like bait you into thinking it's the end. But then there's actually a part 5. And also, normally I'd be quite a bit further, but this is a really bad run. But that's just because I'm very rusty. Also, as you notice, we're the same as those. Those are Purple Panthers, and we're a Purple Panther. There's actually an achievement for beating this level with this mask. So, just playing the speedrun, you get like 1 achievement by default, which is interesting. There's only a few achievements in this game, actually. I think there's only like 20 or something. Not many. Also, you can die to that guy shooting. The bullet he shoots is a normal bullet, but yeah. And now we wait for this cutscene to be over. Then we're going to be moving on to part 5, which is where we play as the biker, which was that guy that we fought earlier. But first, we're going to go backwards in time, because this game's all about a weird story structure. So we just have to wait for this cutscene to go through. And he just throws a picture of himself and a guy that you really don't know much about unless you play the second game, where the second game it goes more in depth on the guy. He's called Beard or whatever. The second game isn't as fun as this one. But now, since we're Biker, the cool thing about Biker is he moves the same speed as Graham. Graham is the same is the mask. He moves at 1/6 speed, so he's basically like in between the normal movement speed and Brandon. He's like because there's two masks that make you move faster, and Graham is just a slightly slower version. Like as I said, sometimes the AI just refuses to react. No, we're good. Now, currently on this file, the only mask I don't have is that one, just because it's the one directly below Brandon. And if I were to pick him, it would make picking Brandon in the beginning a little bit more difficult, and a little bit slower. But that really doesn't matter. Also, Safe House is a very, very, very hard level to get down. It really, really doesn't look like it's hard at all, but it actually really is, especially with the strategy I just used. There's very little difference between the overall time between, like, the best run and, like, average runs, but, like, if you want to save the most amount of time, it's really difficult. Also, right on this level, I do a lot of really weird things just to get the AI to react in a little bit better and more optimal way. Also, that was really annoying. Like right here, I do like a little hemicircle. Not hemisphere. I can't speak right now. I just do that little like curve at the end, and all that does is... Alright, we gotta... Alright, come on guy. There we go. Okay. And what that does is it lets them see me a little bit, then I pull away such that they stop seeing me, which baits the AI into reacting to me once I'm just running through the door in a slightly different way, and it'll make them have better movement. Which I found out by accident one time. And now so that fun and games, the last like real level to run, and now we're moving into Prank Call, which has the last like pseudo skip. It's like a little level. It's not. It's like an in-screen skip. We go from here to here. That's all. It's insanely easy. I also like to break the glass here, and I forgot to lock on earlier, but the fastest way, the second you throw the knife, you start to move slightly slower, so you want to preferably not throw the knife until you're right above that computer. And now we just kick him through the wall, and bam. That saves about 9 seconds. And now we're moving on to Resolution, which is the last part of the game. Last screen of the game. So this is really insanely simple. There's just movement to it, and text selection. And then time is when we get back on that bike right there we just got off of. And we go backwards through that ladder, otherwise we have to do an animation of turning around, which loses time. And the same thing, we want to go forward on that ladder. And then right arm first, and we're done. Now, of course, I mean, my PB is 4 minutes faster than that, so I mean, that's not exactly a great run. But even being this rusty, it's very, very easy for me to get below a sub 30. That's why the sub 30 is there, because there's a lot of times where RNG can really mess you up. But in general, it's sub 30 is like a really easy time to get for most of the better runners. And yeah, that's the video for all levels. Ba-bam.